Hi everyone. This is my wrap up for my April Owls Magical Readathon. I recorded some updates throughout the month, but I didn't get a chance to edit or post them just because it's been a very chaotic time around here. My dad had to go to the hospital for reasons that I won't don't have time to get into right now, and we're also getting ready to move. I recently found out I got accepted into grad school, so I've been preparing for that. So it's just been very hectic. But I am making time to record a quick wrap up of the month. So I was going for Auror, and that required 6 owls. Well, actually required five in Transfiguration, Charms, Potions, Defense Against the Dark Arts, and Herbology. I finished all of those. I also finished a sixth book for and exceeds expectations. So the first book I finished was for Transfiguration. You had to read a red cover. I read Naomi Alderman's The Power, a sci-fi dystopian about what happens when women and girls gain the power to create electricity with their bodies. And it's a mock history of how the world transitioned into a matriarchy. I give it 4 stars. It was very entertaining. It was very compelling. Um, it, I am gonna hopefully record for my next video a review of it about why men need to read it, because it just teaches you how to understand the things that women in the world go through. I don't have that book with me because I'm packing, and it's buried somewhere in a box. So that was my Transfiguration Owl. The next one was Charms, age line. I had to read an adult age book, and I read Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. That was a sequel to Vicious. Uh, and I definitely liked that more than Vicious, even though Vicious was one of my favorite books I read last year. I gave Vengeful 5 stars because the storytelling was the story structure was very tight, and the characters were compelling. The character development was interesting. They added new characters, and the story was much richer. um, it wasn't too big or too small. I mean, it kept it very V.E. Schwab kept the story very compact and streamlined. It was a very, very engaging read. I like books with morally gray characters. They're very interesting. And later this month, I'm going to have a review of Vicious and Vengeful. So that was my Charms Owl. Next owl after that was Potions, which is Next Ingredient. I had to read a sequel. So I read Siege and Storm, which is book 2 of the Lee Bardugo's Grisha trilogy. I didn't like this. I didn't like this as much as Shadow and Bone, which I read earlier this year. I mean, it's very exciting at the beginning and at the end, but there's a long stretch in the middle of this book where nothing very interesting happens. The romances between the characters are kind of annoying, which is actually kind of why I tend to avoid YA. But I do like the world. I like the politics of the world, and I like the magic system, and I like the mysteries in it. I gave this 3 stars, so I'm going to put that right here. I've been robbed. Right, so next book after that, next owl, was Defense Against the Dark Arts. R for Reducto. I had to read a book that started with R, so I read Rise and Ruin, which is the third book in the Grisha trilogy, and I gave this 4 stars. There's a lot more happening here. The relationships are much more developed in this. I like the character interactions. The ending was very satisfying. Although there are some, I'm going to be honest with you, I only gave this 4 stars like I did for Shadow and Bone, because in this book, the dialogue between the characters just kind of devolves to one quip after another. And there's this one scene with the main villain, who's the Darkling, throughout the trilogy, we don't know what his real name is, and when his real name is revealed, it's honestly kind of it kind of plays off as a joke, and it just sort of detracts from the seriousness of it. But overall, I enjoyed this, and it was a very satisfying ending to the series. I am going to read the other books in this universe, the Six of Crows Geology and King of Scars, when I get a chance. But that was my Defense Against the Dark Arts Owl. R for Reducto, Rise and Ruin by Lee Bardugo. I'm going to put that here. So the next book after that, I had to read Herbology, read a book with a plant on the cover. So I read The Immortal List by Chloe Benjamin. This is about a group of 4 siblings in New York in the 60s when they're kids. They go to a woman who, I guess, a Romany gypsy fortune teller who tells them the date they're going to die. And it just follows them living their lives after that. The book is divided into 4 sections, each devoted to one of the children. And this was a really great book. I gave it 4 stars. The stories of each of the individual children was very compelling. The writing style is very beautiful. Thematically, it's very interesting. The reason I only give it 4 stars instead of 5, though, is that it doesn't really feel... Just the ending was not very satisfying, and it doesn't really build up to anything that meaningful or definitive. It's very, this is kind of like a comfort food book. It's not that it's an easy read. There's some very sort of dark moments in the book, but it's kind of a book that makes you feel good after you read it. It's, gives you a nice homey feeling, makes you appreciate family. It's magical realism, which I haven't read in a while. One of my favorite books, though, was the Poisonwood Bible, which this kind of reminds me of a little bit. But overall, enjoyed this book. This is my herbology owl plant on the cover. Okay, so I got all the owls I need to be in order. But I wanted an extra one. I wanted 6 for Exceeds Expectations. So I did I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. This is about a Mexican-American girl who lives in Chicago. She's the daughter of undocumented immigrants. She's very rebellious. She's very intellectual and bookish. She wants to be a writer, which her parents don't approve of. They just want her to kind of stay at home and learn to be a good wife and daughter. Her older sister, who's perfect and who her parents love and who is all those things, she dies at the beginning of this book, and it's just her just sort of dealing with the drama of this, living because in a way she does kind of blame herself for her sister's death, and her parents sort of blame her, and it's just her sort of dealing with that and trying to grow up and come of age, and also learn that her sister was not what she thought she was. I wasn't sure. I mean, I gave this book 3 stars on Goodreads, but I'm hovering between 3 and 4 stars. I mean, I enjoyed it. I finished it in a couple days, 2 or 3 days. I wasn't sure whether to give this 3 or 4 stars, just because, it just doesn't feel, the story just doesn't feel tight enough. You'll start a chapter and something very dramatic has happened, and the author doesn't write, what led up to that. You're just kind of dropped into that. And also, there's not a lot of cohesion between the different elements of the book. I mean, I did enjoy it. It's a good slice of life story, but it just didn't have that oomph that it could have. But so this was for Muggle studies. You have to read a contemporary. So that is I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. So those are my owls. In I think June we're gonna do newts, and that's when I don't know what the rules are for that yet, but I'll keep you posted. I'll film I'm gonna be on time to do newts. I was not on time to do owls. I got to owls late, but I read 6 books this month, and that's the more than I usually read in a month. I have not been a good reader, like I said in my last video, and this really helped get me out of that slump. And so this was fun, and it was good participating in this. So goodbye, and I will see you next time.